Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, Finding Your Joy with Emotional Intelligence with Paul Cheetham. We talk about starting a business as a naturally conservative person, how it's all about networking and building relationships, and his creation of the Joy Shit Scale.
Paul Cheetham is a big advocate of kindness. He loves his family and friends, and crisp sandwiches. Oh yes, and puns. With over 30 years working in HR across a range of sectors, Paul finally took the plunge this year to follow his passion by setting up EightCoaching, which is a consultancy designed to help individuals, teams and organisations be their best selves and be more successful through the understanding and practice of emotional intelligence. His experience shows that finding your path and setting up in business is attainable to everyone. Paul is, in quotes, bloody loving it.
So where do you think we should start then, Paul?
I think we should definitely start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. Sorry, I mean, this is the third time I've actually said that, so I don't know why it's still funny.
And we're still laughing. So.
Yeah.
Was polite.
Yeah. I'm quite happy to start when I was a young man, I guess.
We're not going back to the dawn of time. It's
no,
just
dinosaurs.
Just from my sort of recollection, I think. Although my mum sort of laughs when I say I can remember standing in my cot crying, and she said, you're only 20, so how can you remember that? So yes, I guess as a young mum, I was speaking to my mum at the weekend. And she was sort of recounting how she remembers me wanting to be a poet when I was a young man, and then a bank manager. So it's a bit of a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
There's no rhyme or reason to it, So that was me, I guess, as a young man. I think in terms of work, I think it was always a case of wanting to get a job where I didn't have to sort of use hands in terms of getting them dirty or making things, because I was always pretty rubbish at that. I always come bottom at woodwork and metalwork, so making a sundial out of sort of copper or something just was never my bag. So somewhere where I could use my brain and limited intellect in an office type environment, I think was always something that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what did... Was there anything at school you particularly liked then, from that perspective?
Yeah, I think reading was what I wanted to do most. I loved sort of all of the novels and did all of the Chaucer stuff, the Canterbury Tales.
Okay.
He's, for all the world, he's stinking like a goot, which seems to stick in my head for some reason. Bit of Shakespeare, of course. You always have to get that in. A bit of Macbeth's soliloquy. I don't know if you want me to do a bit now.
If you really want to.
Carry on, yeah.
No, I'll skip that. Yeah.
So did you perform as a child?
I probably did do some performance. So I was always sort of, in church. I was the one chosen to do the reading, but it's really difficult to sort of ad lib, one of Paul's, letters to,
The Corinthians.
The Corinthians, yeah. So, you couldn't really sort of do much with it, I don't think. So I was always doing that. I was probably in the school plays. I think once I was a donkey. Because I could do a good sort of braying noise. So anything that involved getting up and speaking. I know I don't want to make an ass of myself. So I did that, a fair bit. And also remember when I was in school being picked to do some sort of play down in just off Westgate Road. Mm-hmm. So it was this sort of weird combo of The Empire Strikes Back with vampires, and it was called The Vampire Strikes Back. So it was very odd, and I had a small henchman part in that. So I think I probably did always, but strangely speaking, I was quite a shy child in general. I just I don't know, came alive when I got up on stage. So I think I probably liked doing that type of thing, but I didn't then sort of follow that up in terms of drama or anything. It never felt like a proper sort of career path. So I ended up just, focusing on sort of the English stuff, and probably wasn't too bad at maths either. And when I got to 16, didn't know what I wanted to do. I think as most people didn't exactly, but I decided to go try and do A-levels, but then realised I wanted to just get a job. So I had to work in a solicitor's firm for a little while, filing investments, separating people's chairs and hiding them around the office. That wasn't part of the job. That was just that was a prank. He would often play on colleagues.
So where's my chair?
Yeah.
Don't know. He left it on the floor pit.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a strange environment there. But at the same time, actually, I applied for the solicitor's office. I also applied to do like a training program at Northumbrian Water. Although I got the solicitor's one first, and there was a 6-month time delay, and then they got in touch, and I said, "Oh no, I've got a job, ma'am." And she said, "No, I think you should still go." So I still went, and I got the job. And to be fair, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So you got to have like a 2-year sort of around the business, getting a bit of experience of different departments. Although first experience was in the what's now called facilities, but was then called house services. And that had lots of different areas. So I ended up working in the print room, and I was accepted immediately because I was handed a newspaper, and the guys there checked and made sure that I went to the back page first to check the sport, and that's when they knew I was going to be.
You're a good egg.
I was a good guy, so that's how I integrated into that. So worked in the print room, worked in the in-house canteen, sort of peeling 1,000 boiled eggs for the staff to eat at lunchtime, and just going around the business, and I loved it actually. So it was a good experience, and I guess there was 2 particular areas that appealed, one of which was personnel, as things were called in those days, and the other one was PR. Where I served under the mighty George House. I don't know if you remember George House. He was a famous TV presenter in the 70s. So no.
Born in 79, please.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So for the older podcast listeners, Google him. But he had an amazing voice, ably assisted by Mavis, and I don't really know if this is true, but I always think of her as like a Mrs. Slocum. I don't know if she had pink tinged hair, but that's how I imagine her. So as a young man, it was sort of, it felt like it was in the presence of celebrities. But yeah, so when the 2-year finished, I had to choose, and I decided that sort of personnel was for me, because there was lots of people bits in it. So I stayed at Northumbrian Water for 12 years, through lots of times in terms of privatisation, going to different organisations as they grew. So I worked in environmental engineering, consultancy, to a laboratory firm within Northumbrian Water, and loved it, to be honest. Was proudly, so when I worked for the lab firm, we were the first ones in Northumbrian Water to get investors and people at the time. So as a standalone HR young person, it was quite an achievement. So loved that. But after 12 years, I think I probably felt it was time to move on, because I was, I started in 88. I was just about 18, left when I was 30, but I was still young Paul. You get that, and I think you feel as if as a lovely organisation, it was great, probably lots of opportunities, but you need to spread your wings. So I decided to work for Durham University. Loved working in the city, really nice. Probably anybody who knows me, who from working there, probably felt that it really wasn't my bag. My puns and jests weren't always necessarily appreciated
by the academics.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were really good actually. They would swear like trippers and have like a really sort of bawdy sense of humour. But some were a bit poor-faced, and it just really always took too long to get stuff done. Felt as if you were always being very tactical, and probably quite like a bit of spontaneity. I think that's where the fun part comes in. So I was there just under 3 years, and realised probably it wasn't for me, and decided to move on. I then decided I wanted something like completely different, so I went to work for a family-owned print manufacturing company in Sunderland. Very much a culture shock for them and for me, I think. And it's really strange, I guess, because I felt as if I was the same person like across both of those organisations, and yet Durham I was probably seen as some sort of wild card maverick.
He must be related to someone here, because you wouldn't have given him a job otherwise.
And yet,
Probably is.
yeah. And yet, at Edward Thompson, I was seen as like, oh my God, this guy's so straight. He's like, and that probably it's because I didn't tell people to F off.
That's not your job, though, was it?
No, it probably wasn't. But they expected that.
Restructuring.
Well, my boss at the time, sort of his sort of ritual greeting was "Good morning, you Geordie bastard."
I see Mackham there, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. So
God's people.
So that was so that was fun though. But I quite like that because it was just a great organisation to work for, and despite the fact that I guess it was probably it was already declining in terms of sort of manufacturing, printing. I think printed bingo. Lots of different factors really, but not for the want of trying, and not for, I guess, sort of the owners really, caring for their people. I think they always did want to do their best for the people, and which probably was part of the reason why we maybe sort of didn't make some of the difficult decisions as quick as we did, because the company being built on the dad's success, and he always wanted to give back to Sunderland, and I think that was always the thing that he was most proud of. So from a professional point of view, it maybe always wasn't career-wise, and I stayed there for a long time. Maybe wasn't the best, but I loved working for them. And there came a point though when I'd made sort of the latest round of redundancies, where I just thought the next tap on the shoulder is going to be me. And it probably wasn't actually, but I just felt that, in terms of my enormous salary that I was earning at the time, it wasn't. But it was a good salary in terms of that organisation. I just sort of thought, I don't think it's right in terms of the value for the business. So I spoke to the owner. I put forward a proposal to go down to 3 days a week, and I was just going to run like my own consultancy. But that was just like to do like general HR stuff, because I guess I didn't really know exactly. It was just like, am I going to help people with disciplinaries? Am I going to write policies? Am I going to do all that sort of stuff? But I think when I decided that I was going to put that proposal forward, it was a bit scary, I guess, but Paddy was all up for that. But at the same time, he spoke to his brother Phil, who owned Tombola and still does, and he said, do you want to use that time and come and work for me? So the business bit didn't end up taking off, probably for the best. And I think I just thought, okay, I'm just going to give this a go, growing international experience. So I'm now at Tombola, originally doing some, again, traditional HR stuff. Strangely, for a business that had about 400 people when I joined, that didn't have any HR people, which always seems a bit crazy now, but I think that was down to the fact that people who really cared for the business, and I think the managers were really good at just handling situations and probably avoided the sorts of things that you get in large organisations where people are fully aware of their rights, whereas in those places,
entitlements.
Well, I think so, and in hindsight, I'm not saying we didn't get those things at Edward Thompson at Tombola, of course we did, but I think we probably avoided that because we spent less time talking about process and procedure and rules, instead of saying how do we focus on getting better as a business and helping you get better too. And that's why I think both of those organisations always felt like they had like a really good heart. Get stuff wrong, do things badly at times, but I always like to feel that the heart is there. So moved across to Tombola. So again, although family member, knew some of how that was working, knew a little bit about bingo. It was still a change because it was like a lot more tech environment, international based, so Spain, Italy, Gibraltar, latterly Denmark, Sweden. So just sort of a different outlook and a growth outlook, where I'd spent 12 years pretty much managing decline and trying to do it in as human a way as possible and help people find the next path rather than just sort of out you go, son. So it was still a bit of a transition and feeling as if I guess you've got to prove yourself again. And just rewinding back a little bit, sort of at Edward Thompson, it was where I first came across emotional intelligence, and I'd done a little bit of reading around it. And my long-term friend and mentor, who was actually my boss at Northumbrian Water for a spell, a guy called Jim Cowan, who still mentors me now. Such a good guy. Sort of, he's still working in his 70s and just charity works in overseas countries and helping them build businesses. Such an amazing fella, and certainly a lot of his qualities I've always always tried to aspire to. And he came and did a session on emotional intelligence. So I guess that was the first time I properly sort of come across the subject, and did it with the leadership team, and just kept on that reading, I guess. So it had always been in my mind that, I really like the look of this. I think it gives a bit of insight. Yeah, so that was sort of that introduction to emotional intelligence. And then when I moved across to Tombola, maybe we had the funds and facilities to potentially, get somebody trained, i.e. me, to do something with that. Mm-hmm. So I went on that journey, I guess, of, right, okay, I want to do something around emotional intelligence. Phil kindly agreed to actually send me to America. So I had a choice between two organisations to study with, one of which, both US organisations, but one of which had a course down in London and one of which had a course in San Diego. I was just really so tempted to just pick the one, that was in San Diego.
Lovely.
I've not been before, but it just seemed very American and sunny, and it looked like an adventure. So I was like really gutted when I did my research that I found that the one in the UK was probably going to be the best one. I know. So I was a bit sick about that, but I made the right choice to go with an organisation called 6 Seconds. So, and I did that on the back of the fact that I liked the materials that they had. I think they were nice and simple. I'm a simple guy. I like things plain and easy. I always sort of look at myself as the lowest common denominator, and that if I can understand it, then anyone can. So I thought, well, that's good. It'll work. And I like the fact that I think my values were very much aligned. It's a not-for-profit organisation, so its aim is to have 1 billion practitioners of emotional intelligence by 2030.
Wow.
And very much a global movement, actually, a little bit like that. And it always felt that after I came away from the course that I wasn't just, right, you've been on the course, you've had the money, use some of our materials, go and bugger off. There was a real sense of, getting help from the people from the organisation itself, but actually there's just like, I'll call them acolytes from around the world.
A nice community.
A nice community of, loons who actually would help and support. And it's just been like that in terms of, all of the online stuff, meeting up with people. Just, you do feel as if you're actually part of something bigger. So the level of support was always going to be there. So it was a little bit scary because I guess probably the main aim was, and probably does say more about my background personality, I wanted to make sure that Tombola got value for money. And was I going to use the tool? Bear in mind, I'd not come from an L&D background, very much that traditional HR with a touch of L&D, but I'd not really done a lot around this type of stuff. Yes, I'd sort of, if you'd say, coach people informally when stuff was going wrong and help them understand, how they might want to rectify it, but very much in a like a counselling type way than a coaching type way. So the aim was very much, I need to have some tools that I can do emotional intelligence to others when I come back. And I remember talking to my wife before I went and saying, actually, I hope it's not all of this like sitting around the campfire telling bloody sad stories and weeping. I just hope it's not like that. Which obviously came back to haunt me afterwards. You know how that went. So yes, went on the course, and I really came to realise that actually I had to do it for me first. And it was just it was an amazing week with an amazing group of people from all parts of the world, all different backgrounds, all looking to do different things with it. Some in an education background. There was a lady who was a barrister, but who also was using that to support like single parent family groups. So to a guy who'd lost his young son, and he'd lost his business, he'd lost his wife, and he was really looking at this tool maybe to try and help him make sense of what he wanted to do. To maybe cold hard nose sort of L&D consultants who really just wanted a new tool to be able to sell into business. So there was like a bit of a mixture, but all great and all really added in that melting pot. And again, as we talked about, the guy and his personal tragedy, it really made you stop and think about what was important in your life in a very conscious way. So whilst I got a lot of knowledge, I think I got a lot of insight into myself and others too, with some weeping thrown in to boot, and some hugs and stuff like that. So, it was like, and when I came back, I remember, coming back late on the Friday, and it was the Saturday, and I remember sort of telling Sonia this tale, and the look on her face was like, oh my God, he's been to some sort of commune.
Yeah, Moonies.
Well, he's like he's been converted into,
Similar to the Borg.
you know, and telling her what had happened and whatever, and like she was going like, just literally, who are you?
Can I have my husband back?
And it was genuinely like that. And you know, again, those words of, I hope it's not, you know, sitting around telling sad stories sort of thrust back at me, which I probably did, you know, I didn't take too kindly to, because I was so, you know, it felt like I had that sort of passion for it now, and now I was being exposed for the fraud that I obviously was. So I really had to use the emotional intelligence, but again, you know, for her it was like such a surprise, I think, because it had taken me by surprise. And it was really strange in terms of like how people like perceive this, certainly from a family point of view, because you're always cautious about coming in and being like a, you know, an evangelist, Billy Graham, you know, back at work. But I guess sort of again, I'm lucky enough to have a very good family where they're really good at giving you feedback.
And giving and taking the piss.
Yeah, there's some elements of that in there. But
we met your daughter, didn't we? So.
Yeah, Laura. So, yeah, feedback thing's always been prevalent in our household. But it's really good, the fact that, you know, again, even me coming back and being this sort of, you know, evangelical lunatic, there was a sense where they did feel, like... It was good to get that in terms of how this, because it's a good sense check. That's where your family really come in brilliantly, if you've got a family like that. But because you know it's coming from a caring place. Yes, there's a bit of piss taking, but it always comes from, you know, that actually, why are you doing that? You come across as weird. Please stop it. So it made me realise I had to tone that down just a tad. But it did start me thinking about really what I wanted to do. So when I came back from the course, there's obviously a sense of you've got to use the materials in order for you to then get qualified. I did some further sort of online learning that got me able to use some of the tools. There's the Brain Brief Profile, which gives you a very simple snapshot of how your emotional intelligence works, what sits underneath, to the full leadership stuff, which came on the back of me doing the online course. And then just getting in and practicing and diving in, which again is probably scary, but maybe not as scary when you feel as if you've got a bit of a captive audience who are going, ooh, somebody gets to do me a test, a bit like one of these like magazine things, you know, do you like tuna or Mars bars or something, and at the end it can divine your whole sort of personality. So I think people were just genuinely interested in, I guess, doing that and testing it out. And I really enjoyed it and, you know, learned a lot and, you know, I guess made some mistakes with that. But overall, I just got the opportunity to start doing some emotional intelligence coaching with people who I think benefited from that, but also with teams too. So, you know, looking at how like each individual profile and what that said about that group of individuals and the strengths and maybe opportunities for the team too. So that was that, I think, for the first year, really. So as much as that was a little bit scary, I was enjoying it, albeit I had still all of the other stuff to do, the policies to write, the disciplinaries to handle, the challenges in terms of growth for a growth organisation. And again, sort of at the time, you know, I think only had like 2 or 3 people in HR. So again, as a growing organisation, how do you fit in this stuff that, you know, the organisation wanted me to do, but I found that I loved it and I really probably wasn't getting enough. So as much as emotional intelligence was helpful, it actually at the time, it felt like, oh my God, this is real. It's hurting a bit because I'm really starting to examine what I'm actually doing. And then I think a couple of things happened probably in the last 12 months, which revolved around sort of changes in the organisation. So the organisation decided they wanted sort of a senior person to head up people to bring in other areas. So, you know, the culture team and the comms team and the L&D team weren't part of HR. It was sort of done separately, but they wanted somebody to oversee the HR bit and all of those different areas. And I guess there was challenging conversations with the business where they put this role in there, and I had to decide I didn't want to apply for it. Fortunately, the business agreed. But it's a bit like, I guess, not been married for a long time, over 25 years, so this doesn't apply. But it's a bit like I would imagine a scenario of, as a girl in the club, and you don't fancy her, but when you find out she doesn't fancy you either, you're still a little bit gutted and disappointed as to why she doesn't find you attractive. So there was definitely some of that there, and I think it was it felt like the first ever sort of knock back in my career. I'd been for jobs and not got them before, but that was fine. But this was like people who knew me, who didn't think I was brilliant. Apart from my family, obviously. So it just that really sort of made me challenge in terms of is that one. There's things that had probably already been sitting there. It opened up a bit, and apologies for maybe sort of taking it down a bit of a somber turn. But last year I found out that there's two lads I've known since I was 4. They lived on my estate. Brothers, so Andy was in the same year as me, but about 6 months. One was 6 months younger than me, and the older brother's in the year above, John. And so we'd known each other since we were 4, and we'd all knocked around together. And John was diagnosed with cancer in the August and died in the September. And I think, as much as we'd had family members dying, I think this just felt like so unnatural. And it probably feels like a typical tale that other people who've encountered this felt. And I think allied with stuff that was going on in my life, and I just sort of thought, oh my God, what about if that was me? Could I look back at my last days and think, actually, I lived my best life? And I think that's where the emotional intelligence combined with some of those things. But it took me a while to process. I knew what was there. I think probably fear was just at the bottom of that. I posted something actually just on LinkedIn this morning from the Brené Brown sort of TED Talk stuff, and about having that, courage to do that. And I think it just took me some time to, I guess, admit to myself and to others, and obviously I talked to my family about it. But then by this time I've got a new boss who you don't know so well. You don't know how she's going to react. And obviously I've got Phil, the owner, who knows me well, but still, I've got to really go and talk to them and say, I don't really want to do my job anymore. Here's an alternative. What? How about it then? So it just felt like such a difficult time, because it's not just you to think about. You've got to think about your family. You've got to think about mortgages. You've got to think about all of those stuff. And allied with the fact that I'm quite a naturally conservative person when it comes to those types of things. So, again, thinking about me journey in business, I've not really had that, that trauma of being, it's too strong a word, but that difficulty and that challenge maybe. And this was just sort of so far out of my comfort zone that I knew I had to do something about it. And I think it came to something where I felt the worst outcome was me not saying anything. So I was looking forward to probably where I am now. I was looking forward to May, June, thinking if I'm still May, June, doing the same job, not having spoken out, that would have been the worst outcome, with only the second worst outcome actually being the company saying, no thanks, away you go. So I think that probably, that was the thought that ended up making me decide I've got to do something about this. Yeah. So I then had to go and talk to the boss and decide to say, I want to do my EightCoaching, I want to do some consultancy, and I want to change my role at work. So that's got me just about to where I am.
So what are you doing now? So talk us through your current role.
Okay, yes. So when it was all approved, and I'm really thankful to both the boss and the owner of the company for believing in me in terms of changing my role at Tombola. So I'm doing and focusing stuff on that really matters to me, which is around well-being, and it's about community at Tombola. But I'm also, again, I've set up my own coaching business, really because it is a passion, and I genuinely believe it can make a difference to people, because I've felt it myself in terms of the difference it makes to me, and also that I've seen the difference that it can make to other people too. So I did it. Yes, I want to make money for anybody who's listening, but that's definitely an aim somewhere way down the list. If I make money from actually just helping people become better, living my purpose, which I defined as about giving joy. And I think for those who attended the Inspiration North session, when I came up with my joy shit scale and helped to identify where you might sit.
We need to show people that.
We will.
Yeah.
We can put that on there. So wherever you sit in terms of your life and the challenges you're going through, so it's not all around shiny jazz hands. It's sometimes around how can I help you feel less shit. And I think that again is just such a powerful thing. You're just like taking those small steps to help you get to a good place, to help you get to equilibrium, and then grow from there. So, yeah, so with EightCoaching, and it's been brilliant. I mean, I've been so lucky, I guess, that over the years that I've always been a natural networker. We always beat ourselves up about things that we're really rubbish at, but one of the things I've been really great at is building up relationships, both short and long term, in a sense, in terms of friends I've had for 44 years. And I think I probably have friends that I've got from all of the organisations that I work with now, as well as business contacts and connections. Really lucky to have that close family still. In terms of parents and brothers,
When I set my business, you were recommended as one of the first people I should meet.
Yeah,
So
that's lovely.
That was 2016.
Wow, yeah, that's lovely. And again, I didn't have a business then, so nothing to sell.
No.
So I guess your personal, it's using the term personal brand. Yeah, but it sounds always a bit naff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of who you are, hopefully that over the years of just meeting people, helping people, talking to people, listening, supporting wherever I could outside of my day job has stood me in good stead, because I just feel as if I've had, such a warm reception. So it hasn't felt as if I had to sell anything. It's just people going, oh, you're doing this now. That's brilliant. I'd love to do that. And I think maybe they don't know about emotional intelligence, but maybe they're buying into me, I guess. So which is a lovely thing. So what I'm doing is just doing podcasts, doing talks for some really amazing people, yourself and James Michelle. And love it. You're really, I love spending time with you. You're both good, fun people, and I learn a lot about what you do, and the fact that you put these sessions on, I think, is absolutely amazing. So yeah, the EightCoaching stuff is working just so well, and that's off the back of like really people believing in me and believing that emotional intelligence can hugely make a difference. And I've been sort of inundated with organisations and people saying, do you want to come and talk to us? Do you want to come and help some of our people? And that's what I'm doing now. I was talking to actually I think it was the last podcaster, Graham Sleep, this morning, who has been through doing some of this, and he's sort of talking about his experience of running a business, running a sort of a consultancy, and I think that's great. I think it'll be something that I'll think of at some point in terms of like really turn this into products that I can sell and whatever. But at the moment, it's a bit like sort of running into the sea. It's a bit like running into the sea with joy if you've never seen the ocean before. I guess it feels like I'm just embracing what comes, and if that takes me down a particular route, and I'm enjoying doing a collaboration here or a podcast there, working with people here, I'm just enjoying and embracing the fun and the unknown, which is probably unusual for me to do in that sense. Yeah. So that's the bit that I'm absolutely loving the most, I guess, outside of maybe some of the structures of an organisational boundary. Just being able to find new things to do that are fun, really. Yeah.
It's kind of playtime now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good. I always like to ask questions that people might be thinking, which is, we hear about emotional intelligence quite a lot, but I've openly admitted and say, well, what actually is it? We always talk about it, but how would you kind of define that for the listeners?
I mean, in very simplistic terms, it's just being smarter with your feelings, and I know sometimes people, northeast men people, can sometimes not particularly, but that applies to all genders as well. So effectively, the premise is that we all have our feelings. Feelings have a biological purpose. They are actually giving us signals, and if we're not tuning into those signals, actually we're making decisions based on only half the data. Who would do that? On any big decision that you might have about, should I'm already married, I'm in Vegas with a lad, should I get married again to a stripper? Is
no.
But again, you might have feelings. you might have feelings that tell you that, oh my God, this is the best stripper that I've ever met, and she's so
It's like
lovely.
The Hangover.
Yeah. So, but again, even joy, which, you know, if you're feeling joyous, this lady finds me attractive, you know, whatever. So that, you know, making a
And she's
decision.
got a baby, and if your friend's carrying around in a papoose.
Yeah.
And then you get a face tat. So I know
Yeah,
which
yeah.
one you are, yeah.
So, tooth removed. So even joy has a purpose, but even then, an extreme of joy, you know, in an ecstatic state can lead you down a difficult path. So are you making the right decision when you're in the best mood ever? To the obvious ones, like, you know, are you really noticing if you feel frustrated or angry or, you know, disgusted in a situation? And each of those things have a unique purpose in our lives to tell us what's going on. And certainly, you know, for my own personal circumstances, I really had to tune in to my own emotions to listen to, well, what are they telling me? Actually, you love doing this and you don't like doing that. These are the feelings that I'm having, and you're keeping your own, you know, you can write it down in a diary. I didn't. I just kept a sort of a mental log, and that helps you to go, do more of this then and do less of that. So it helps you understand a little bit about what's important to you, what you value, what you want to do. So in essence, it is about that smarter with your feelings. Obviously, emotional intelligence is a vast subject. It can help you on things like improving your levels of optimism. Are you applying consequential thinking enough or too much? You know, how much are you driven by your own intrinsic motivation, or are you driven by the people, the world, the circumstances that sit around you? How empathetic are you to others? Are you too empathetic? Does that prevent you from moving forward because you're so focused on other people's feelings? To, you know, again, do you know what you're about? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing? What is your purpose? So there's just so much to this to explain very simply over a short podcast. But if you have to really boil it down, it is about your feelings, driving you, understanding what they are, and then helping putting that into action, but in a particular direction. So that's what it means, and that's what it meant to me in my, let's say, naff thing, a journey so far. And that's what it, I think, can mean to others and will continue to mean for me.
So I absolutely love how you've sort of made your first sort of baby steps into working for yourself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've described yourself as somebody who's quite conservative when it comes to money and risk.
Yeah.
You've built up such a good reputation internally in the organisation that, you know, they let you kind of follow your joy.
Yeah.
So you've got the best of both worlds, and you know, you don't have to just jump out of an organisation and like, oh my God, now I have to sell stuff. You've got that safety net, and it's a good way of doing it, I think, for you.
It is definitely good for me, and it might not work for other people too. And I think, you know, when you listen to some other people in terms of the podcast, in terms of the amazing things that they've done, and I always I'm so admire the courage that they've shown just to sort of take that plunge, even maybe when they're in less of a secure, you know, circumstances that I was in. And one of the reasons I guess I felt as if I wanted to do the podcast was I thought it would be nice to have a nice balance, you know, with all of those other genuinely, truly sort of marvelous, inspirational people, to have like what I've, you know, termed myself as like an ordinary guy. Like, you know, so I waited till I was 48 to do this, and, you know, I would go to the Blake Law Social Club with me dad, you know, having a few pints with your mates, spending time with the family, like doing like ordinary stuff. So I'm hoping that people can listen to this and go, actually, I see myself as an ordinary person that will have maybe some extraordinary talents, and it's about how can I apply that to maybe starting up a charity, setting up your own business, doing stuff in the community, whatever that may be. Think about what it is you want to do. Listen to what your bodies and your emotions telling you. Know that you can choose to be different and act differently, and you're not, you know, structured by something that's been maybe hardwired over the last 20, 30, 40 years, and then put that into action. You can do something about that, even if you feel like, you know, you haven't got some of the things that some of these extraordinary people have got. So that's, I guess, some of the message I wanted to try and put across today.
It's finding that passion, and we're talking about joy, and I just had this vision. My brain's a bit weird, but I had this vision of, so joy is actually a person.
Yeah.
Someone in
Inside
their
out.
50s or 60s, really confident, and it's like, come on, everybody, this way to joy.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a lady I know, Joy, who works for McNaughton McGregor, and they do drama-based learning, and she does like this thing, and she's just amazing, and I just love to watch her perform in action. And she always makes me joyful to watch her perform and do that sort of L&D stuff around that drama-based learning stuff. So yeah, I thought I could imagine her doing that. Maybe I should get her to do some sort of video and then I could put it on. You know,
No, that'd be cool.
We'll tag it on. Yeah, everyone needs joy.
the embodiment of joy.
I used to work, well, like one of my best friends is called Joy, so
Yeah.
she's just lush. Hi,
Yeah.
Joy. Tag her in, she was like, Michelle, would you stop talking about me?
Yeah. I also love people called Jean, because some reason whenever you
Hi,
meet
Jean.
hi Jean, it's just like I don't know, you're telling them to wash their hands or you're actually greeting them or what. So
It's brilliant.
yeah, I like that. So again, sorry, puns. I do love puns.
Yeah.
That'll be in here somewhere. I'm sure you'll be able to spot the odd one thrown in, and I'll try to be very good.
So what else is your passion? Because I have some video evidence of one of your other passions, Paul.
Yeah. So I've talked about
James's face.
We need a not safe for work introduction to the.
NSFW.
Oh, it's not that video. Okay.
So my experiences of the adult entertainment industry.
No, not that one.
No, I do love a bit of karaoke. So again, that was part of the thinking. I think when I come up with my noble goal, was around, well, what do I love to do? So I didn't just look around work stuff. I actually looked at stuff in my whole life in terms of going up to the pub with my mates and daft jokes and puns. And karaoke was something that I always loved to do. And we were chatting about that earlier, about me, being a busker for about 10 minutes in Bristol last weekend. I earned the guy some cash, I think, so that was good. And I got a round of applause from all those sitting outside of Zaza Bazaar restaurant. And it's because I love to feel like, that you're sort of giving of yourself. So if that's a sad song, really trying to emote. If it's a happy, joyful song, really sort of projecting that out there, eye contact the audience.
That sounded like
terrible.
thunder. It's there. Sing a sad song and make it better.
Yeah.
Hey Jude, there we go. Got
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one in there.
We'll start that one in. Or even sort of a very corny intro. So there's one I once did. So I was going to do an Oasis song, and so I said, right, I want you to just get ready to hit it, and did the joke where the guy's in the restaurant and he says, "Oh, I like the soup. What soup is it?" And he says, "Oh," the waiter says, "It's Oasis soup." And he said, "Well, what's in it?" He says, "Vegetables." He says, "Well, why do you call it Oasis soup?" You get a roll with it. So those types of like really
Dad
cringy.
jokes.
I like that one, which is my wife said I need to stop singing Oasis songs.
Yeah.
I said maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't got one, sorry.
So I do love a bit of the singing bit as well. And again, I think it was important for me to look at all aspects of my life to decide actually what's your passion. Don't just focus on what you feels like the job that you do and the work that you do. And it's great now to almost have a proper CV, because I think my CV before was did HR stuff in different ways in this company, where I love when you see people on the telly and they go, I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I'm a performer, I'm a charity, whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's an
I
element.
was just thinking of there's a song in there somewhere.
Yeah, that probably is.
I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child.
Oh, I wasn't thinking
that
that
one. No, is
no,
that
I
one?
was thinking of a different one. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of music. I like the old.
What's that one?
Yeah, I've got to try and weave in learning to love yourself as the greatest love of all as part of my emotional intelligence thing at some point, which it is true, by the way. Yeah. All that. So looking outside to try and understand what you're passionate about in the world, and then see if you can do it for work would just be one tip. I think would be good for people to start looking at. Yeah,
we've found that with the Action for Happiness course, haven't we? That when you've got goals that are bigger than yourself,
yeah,
that's a source of happiness.
Yeah. definitely. And when you're looking at what you want to do, it is about feeling as if you're making a contribution to something rather than just, I want to make £1 million by this time next year, which is not really a noble goal.
You can do that selling stuff on eBay if you really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's like, would it make your heart sing?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. Your heart or your mouth.
So we always go back in time. If you could go back to your younger self.
Step back in time. Is that Kylie?
Step back in time. Oh, I don't know, actually.
Step back in time.
I don't remember that one.
It's a really early Kylie one.
It was, yeah.
The locomotion there.
It's after the locomotion.
Yeah, come on. Come on. You should be so lucky.
Ask your question,
Come on
James.
then. Yeah.
So, your younger self, kind of, I don't know, leaving school age, what kind of advice do you think you'd give yourself if you had the opportunity?
I think I would give myself 2 pieces of advice. One of which is you're going to be doing some great networking, and that's what you love. So keep on doing what you're great at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the final bit was, okay, you're going to get there maybe in about 20 odd years. But actually, if you could start showing a bit more courage now to put yourself out there and be more vulnerable, then do that.
Great.
That's marvellous. Well, so, go on. Sorry,
I
James.
was going to say, any parting words of wisdom, song lyrics, or puns that you think we need to get out before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I've done all the ones that I can do for now. They're all turned off. It's a little bit by now. So
if somebody wants to track you down, obviously the details are all in the show notes. But
yeah.
what's the best way if they want some sort of party entertainer that will help them, tune into their feelings? How would that happen?
Yeah, weddings, bar mitzvahs, funerals, funeral singers. So just Paul Cheetham, Cheetham on LinkedIn is probably our best way, or you can email me at paul@EightCoaching, so that's 8 the word EIGHT coaching.co.uk. Or you could probably catch me in a city centre pub in Cozy Joe's on Friday the 2nd of August.
You'd be singing.
Yeah, I will be doing a bit of that. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Stuff.
No, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I've absolutely loved it.
Thanks,
Good.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.